The silence inside the palace walls didn't break with a scream, it broke with a folder. A gray, worn-out dossier carried by royal photographer Arthur Edwards straight into a locked briefing room in London, and according to insiders, what happened next may have detonated the carefully polished image surrounding Meghan Markle and Prince Harry forever. For years, people whispered that something behind the Sussex fairy tale didn't quite add up. The forced smiles, the carefully staged photographs, the endless victim narrative wrapped in million-dollar contracts. But now, the man who stood behind the camera for half a century is allegedly done protecting the illusion. And what he reportedly revealed inside that room has sent shockwaves through royal circles that are still spreading right now. At exactly 8:15 in the morning on May 12, 2026, the atmosphere inside the London newsroom reportedly shifted from routine newsroom chatter to total paralysis when Arthur Edwards entered without his signature camera. That alone terrified people. This was a man who photographed generations of royals, the weddings, the funerals, the scandals, the tears, and according to sources, he arrived carrying something far more dangerous than photographs: a sealed dossier connected to a non-disclosure agreement dating back to 2018. But here's the chilling part. The expiration clause had allegedly triggered at midnight, meaning the silence was officially over. According to the transcript, Edwards allegedly told editors he had spent years trapped in silence while watching what he believed was the systematic manufacturing of a public image. Then came the moment that stunned the room. He reportedly described an encounter with Meghan Markle shortly after the royal wedding in 2018, where she allegedly instructed him never to photograph the left side of her face during public events because she knew which angles sold best in America. That single detail exploded through the room because it transformed the entire narrative. Suddenly, critics weren't looking at a duchess demanding privacy. They were allegedly looking at someone carefully engineering a commercial brand. And according to Edwards, that was the real story all along. What makes this even more explosive is the timing. The allegations surfaced right as reports claim the Sussex media empire was cracking under pressure after the collapse of major entertainment projects. According to the transcript, insiders described Netflix quietly pulling away after disappointing performance numbers connected to With Love Meghan. And once the commercial shield weakened, the people who had allegedly stayed silent for years suddenly began talking. That is when Arthur Edwards reportedly opened the gray dossier and began laying out what he described as a years-long pattern of aggressive image control behind palace walls. Then came the allegations that changed everything. The dossier reportedly included internal palace correspondence and accusations that Meghan's team tried to impose strict conditions on royal photographers, including pre-approval of images, blacklisting agencies that captured unauthorized expressions, and even requiring secondary private NDAs for access to events. If true, this wasn't ordinary celebrity behavior anymore. This was allegedly a war over narrative ownership happening inside the monarchy itself. And according to Edwards, Prince Harry stood silently during many of these exchanges, staring at the floor while tensions escalated around him. That image alone is haunting people online right now. But the story didn't stop at image management. The transcript claims Edwards referenced something now being whispered about as the Frogmore tapes, alleged audio recordings connected to heated moments during the Frogmore Cottage renovation era in 2019. According to the briefing, these recordings allegedly contained raw conversations involving royal staff and reactions behind closed doors that were never meant to leave the palace. And then came the ultimatum, a 48-hour countdown reportedly issued to the Sussex legal team before the tapes could be made public. Suddenly, this wasn't gossip anymore. This became psychological warfare. The deeper Arthur Edwards allegedly went into the timeline, the darker the picture became. He reportedly walked editors through a decade-long breakdown of how his relationship with Meghan Markle shifted from admiration to suspicion. Back in 2017, he openly praised her as a rock star who could modernize the monarchy. But according to the transcript, things allegedly changed rapidly after the royal wedding. Edwards claimed he was pushed unusually far away during the Windsor carriage procession and deliberately denied clean shots of the bride. Small detail? Maybe. But in the mind of a photographer who spent decades reading royal behavior, it allegedly felt intentional, like the beginning of a calculated distance between the Sussexes and the traditional press. Then came baby Archie's birth in 2019, the moment many royal watchers believed the relationship fully collapsed. Instead of the traditional hospital photo call that generations of royals participated in, the Sussexes reportedly imposed a media blackout. Arthur Edwards allegedly responded by flying to Germany to photograph King Charles III instead, later telling colleagues he preferred covering royals who respected the public relationship with the press. That sentence hit like a thunderbolt because it exposed the emotional fracture underneath the professional one. And then everything spiraled. Megxit, California, Oprah, Netflix, Spotify. According to Edwards, each chapter allegedly followed the same pattern: distance from the institution followed by monetization of victimhood. The transcript describes a 4-stage PR cycle where silence created speculation. Speculation triggered outrage, outrage generated sympathy, and sympathy turned into billion-dollar commercial value overseas. Whether people believe it or not, the allegation itself is devastating because it reframes the entire Sussex narrative as strategic branding instead of emotional survival. But perhaps the most chilling moment came when Arthur Edwards reportedly described watching the Oprah interview in 2021. He allegedly said the smiling soldier prince he once knew had disappeared completely. The Harry he photographed for decades was gone, replaced by someone who looked unbelievably miserable. That observation now echoes through every new photograph of Harry appearing online because people are suddenly re-examining his expressions frame by frame. Was he trapped? Was he loyal? Was he conflicted? Nobody knows anymore. And that uncertainty is feeding the fire. Then came the allegation about manipulated paparazzi footage used in the Netflix documentary trailer. According to Edwards, scenes presented as aggressive media pursuit allegedly came from unrelated events years earlier, including a Harry Potter premiere. If true, that revelation becomes a catastrophic credibility problem because it suggests the emotional foundation of the Sussex persecution narrative may have been visually engineered. Edwards reportedly called it the precision of the lie, and once that phrase entered the conversation, people stopped looking at the Sussex brand the same way. The deeper investigators allegedly dug into the Grey dossier, the more disturbing the timeline became because Arthur Edwards was no longer speaking like a photographer. He reportedly sounded like a forensic analyst reconstructing a decade-long operation piece by piece. According to the transcript, one of the biggest obsessions inside the dossier involved Frogmore Cottage, not just as a home, but as what Edwards allegedly believed was the centerpiece of a carefully staged royal branding campaign. And this is where the entire scandal allegedly shifts from emotional drama into financial controversy. The dossier reportedly included internal renovation invoices connected to the £2.4 million Frogmore Cottage restoration funded through the sovereign grant. But Arthur Edwards allegedly argued the property was never truly intended to become a long-term royal home at all. According to the files, expensive custom fixtures were imported from North America, while shipping plans connected to California were already allegedly being prepared behind the scenes. If true, the implications are explosive because it would mean British taxpayers unknowingly financed a temporary image-building operation that was abandoned almost immediately after its global publicity value peaked. And according to the transcript, the deeper Edwards went into the paperwork, the more suspicious the timeline allegedly became. Planning documents connected to Frogmore reportedly resembled specifications closer to a luxury media compound than a permanent royal family residence. Edwards allegedly pointed to council concerns about unusual residential layouts while simultaneously presenting evidence that American interior design discussions were already underway months before the Windsor renovations even finished. That detail is haunting critics because it creates a terrifying possibility that the exit strategy may have already been planned while the monarchy and the British public were still financing the Sussex transition into royal life. Then the story allegedly became even darker. According to Arthur Edwards, the repayment narrative surrounding Frogmore Cottage may not have been as clean as the public believed. While official statements claim the Sussexes paid back the renovation costs, Edwards allegedly identified accounting gaps tied to security infrastructure, ongoing maintenance, and interest-related discrepancies. But the most explosive allegation involved where the repayment money allegedly came from. The dossier reportedly argues that the funds were indirectly connected to commercial deals built around royal branding itself, deals involving Netflix, media appearances, and celebrity monetization. If true, the repayment becomes psychologically twisted, because critics would argue the royal system effectively financed a brand that later profited from criticizing the very institution that created its value. And just when the scandal already seemed impossible to top, Arthur Edwards allegedly opened another layer entirely: the With Love Meghan production files. This is where the transcript suddenly shifts from palace politics to something far colder and more personal. According to the dossier, the smiling California lifestyle high-profile image presented to audiences in 2025 allegedly concealed a production environment filled with fear and tension behind the scenes. One specific incident involving a honey-pouring scene reportedly became central to everything. The transcript describes a carefully choreographed kitchen sequence filmed in Montecito where Meghan Markle laughed warmly alongside longtime makeup artist Daniel Martin while pouring organic honey into white bowls beneath soft California lighting. On camera, the moment looked effortless, peaceful, wholesome, almost hypnotically perfect. But according to Arthur Edwards, the real story allegedly began seconds after the director yelled cut. The dossier claims Edwards obtained synchronized audio and behind-the-scenes evidence showing Meghan suddenly turning cold and sharply reprimanding a junior production assistant over the positioning and texture of the honey jars because shadows allegedly affected her profile. That contrast between the soft public persona and the alleged off-camera atmosphere is exactly what detonated social media conversations surrounding the dossier. According to the transcript, Daniel Martin's laughter during the scene allegedly wasn't spontaneous happiness at all. Edwards reportedly believed it was tension management, an attempt to calm a production environment that had already been under pressure since early morning filming. And then came the bombshell no one expected. The dossier allegedly revealed that former staff members connected to the Montecito production filed legal complaints tied to accusations of a toxic workplace culture. Suddenly, critics began drawing terrifying parallels between allegations involving palace aides years earlier and claims now surfacing in California. Two continents, two environments, same accusations. That pattern is what made the dossier so dangerous. Arthur Edwards allegedly told editors that after spending 50 years photographing real emotion inside the royal family, he had developed an instinct for identifying forced expressions. According to the transcript, he claimed he recognized what he described as the fade of the smile immediately after cameras stopped rolling during the Montecito footage. That sentence alone spread online like wildfire because it transformed the documentary-style warmth into something eerie and calculated. Viewers suddenly began rewatching old Sussex interviews and public appearances differently, searching for cracks between performance and reality. But perhaps the most devastating part of the dossier wasn't about Meghan at all. It was about Prince Harry. Because throughout the transcript, Arthur Edwards repeatedly described Harry as a man slowly disappearing in front of the camera over the course of several years. Not angry, not rebellious, just emotionally erased. Edwards allegedly compared the smiling military prince he once photographed to the silent figure standing beside Meghan during recent appearances. And according to insiders in the room, that emotional transformation affected even longtime royal reporters who had known Harry since childhood. Then came the three-scenario prediction that reportedly froze the entire newsroom. According to Arthur Edwards' analysis, the Sussex future could follow one of three paths. The first scenario involved a dramatic return of Harry to Britain following a total collapse of the marriage, an event Edwards allegedly imagined himself photographing personally at Heathrow Airport. The second scenario involved slow irrelevance, where Meghan continued building California lifestyle projects while Britain gradually stopped paying attention entirely. But it was the third possibility, the so-called black scenario, that allegedly terrified insiders most. According to the transcript, the dossier argues there may already be sufficient evidence for serious parliamentary pressure surrounding the Sussex titles if authorities conclude the royal brand was commercially exploited against earlier agreements established after Brexit. That possibility alone reportedly triggered panic discussions inside media circles because stripping a title would transform a celebrity scandal into a constitutional crisis involving the monarchy itself. And Arthur Edwards allegedly believes the evidence trail connecting Netflix contracts, PR narratives, and commercial branding dates back as far as 2019.